Okay. Well, we'll have to confirm whether we actually have to record it or not. I mean, I know we do, but I'm not sure it's a requirement. We just have to meet. So can talk about that. So it is Monday, November 6th, 2023. Wow, another month. I call this meeting of the Needham Design Review Board to order. I am the chair, Mark Lusing. I would like to confirm that members and applicants are present and can hear each other. So when I call your name, please respond. Steve Dornbush.
Here.
Susan Upton. There she is.
Here.
And applicants, please let us know that you can hear us. 100 and 152 Second Ave, Atrius Health.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Heather.
Hi.
117 Kendrick Street.
Yes, here, Tim Sullivan.
120 Highland Ave. AJ Rose, Brian Brinkers. Is he here today? Not yet. Okay, he may come in. 1154 Great Plain Ave, the Congregational Church.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Andrew Clark.
Welcome to this open meeting of the Needham Design Review Board, which is being conducted remotely, consistent with state orders. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For this meeting, the Needham Design Review Board is convening by Zoom app as posted on the town's website. The DRB page, identifying how the public may join. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. All the supporting materials that have been provided the members of this board are available on the town's website. Public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Please note that the meeting is being recorded. Accordingly, please be aware that other people may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer unless the chair approves. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. I would like to review the remote meeting procedures for tonight's meeting. I will introduce each applicant on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will take questions and comments from the DRB members. After discussion, each vote will be by roll call vote. The building department requires electronic submission of building permit applications. A copy of your application, stamped and noted for the type of approval it receives, will be emailed to you by the DRB support staff. That can then be attached to your building permit application. So we will now start with the first item on the agenda. And that is, so we have Heather, we have Atrius Health, 152 Second Ave,
yep,
and 100 Second Ave.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you again. So I do have two locations for Atrius. We can start with the 152, and hopefully these are very simple sign changes for you. At 152, they just like to remove an existing non-illuminated sign and replace it. Same, it's a little smaller, same overall height, non-illuminated at the same location. Harvard Vanguard is doing a renaming of all of their sites in Massachusetts, so that's what prompted this. So it's remains a non-illuminated sign. It's a polycarbonate face with vinyl graphics and will be placed at the same exact location as the existing.
So you're refacing the existing, I'm looking at the...
No, the next one is a reface. This is a new structure.
Oh, because this is a whole new...
Yep.
Okay, 152 is...
Yep.
Steve and Susan, do you have it to look at, or do you want us to?
No, I have it up. I'm good.
Okay. All right. So, Steve, why don't you start off?
One just question is,
yeah,
I can't tell just on the screen. Is that is the lettering white, or
yes,
is it like it's white?
White.
Okay, so we'll pop out. And I very rarely ever say this, but Central Lab could actually be a little larger, I think, a little older. Usually
I've never heard that from you.
I know, usually I'm like tone things down, but like but no, I know the area, and it's good the address is.
Mm-hmm.
I drive through there a lot. It's great when the number is prominent. So I think it's good. So I really don't have any questions. It looks good.
Okay,
It's
thank you.
very tasteful.
Okay, Susan?
My only comment was the last line seems very small. I forget what it is. The
Part of
op,
Optum, part of Optum.
yes, you can barely see that.
Yeah.
Is that necessary
To have it that small or to have it on there at all?
to have it on there at all?
I think they're required to have that on there because there's some sort of umbrella under Optum Healthcare, so they might need to note it on their signage. I do see it on most of their signage.
Well, it seems irrelevant at the size that it is. That's my only comment. I'll let my colleagues
Okay.
discuss.
Well, I guess I would agree with you that it doesn't really add anything. It's this happens to be my health, like I call it clinic, but so it was Harvard Vanguard.
Yeah.
They were bought by Atrius, and now all the Atrius has been bought by Optum.
Optum. Yeah.
And so they're trying to throw their name in. I guess, when you compare it to the second sign application, which is changing the name Harvard Vanguard Medical Associates to Atrius Health, part of Optum. The big item is the Atrius Health identifying it as the big item on this sign is Central Lab.
Right. And I think I read somewhere, Mark, in the paperwork that the Central Lab is not a public location.
Okay.
So people are not walking in for appointments. So the people trying to find that facility are different clientele.
Okay. Well, if it matches the signs that are there, they're a good quality sign, and I think the detailing that you've included gives us a good sense. And I know that that location is not a visual issue with the driveway, which is what we always are concerned with ground signs. I do agree with Susan. It's sort of pointless. The part of Optum is pointless, but that's just the way that logo is, I guess. So, I mean, it doesn't. I guess I don't see it negative, but I agree with Susan. It's sort of useless. But if that's how they want to identify it, I'm comfortable with letting it stay at this point. But I don't know what Steve thinks on that.
I figure it's there for some graphic branding and maybe the mother company or something that they need to be associated with. That's a legal thing. So it doesn't bother me.
Okay.
It's acceptable.
Okay, Susan, can we live with it?
Sure.
Okay.
I think if there's no patients or anything going there, then it doesn't matter.
Okay. All right. So why don't we deal with these one at a time, since they're a little bit more different than I thought. So I would take a motion to approve the sign for 152 Second Ave as submitted.
I would move the motion.
I second the motion.
Okay, and they come to the vote. Steve?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
And the chair is yes. All right, then they have the second sign, 100. Heather, this is a little different.
Yes, so this structure will stay in place, and they're just going to do an overlay panel on the top part. So this site does have patients entering the building, I believe. So it looks a little different. But there'll be no change to the sign structure, just an overlay panel.
All right, I'm reading this panel. It's 3/16 of an inch of basically polycarbonate plastic.
Yes.
And then the blue is the vinyl added, and the white letters show through the natural color of the plastic.
No, it's a non-illuminated sign, so it'd be polycarbonate with the vinyl lettering.
Well, it says white polycarbonate and I'm looking at a blue sign, so
Let
it's
me-
not just lettering added to the sign.
No, so I read it as it's a new panel overlaid on the existing sign.
Yep.
Polycarbonate blue with white vinyl. That's,
Can you tell me where it's blue?
oh, I see what you're saying. They wrote blue, they wrote white polycarbonate.
On the upper left sign specs, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, well, if it's
Yeah.
blue, that's,
it should be blue. It's blue.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, I see the contrast, right? I'll
Yeah,
just-
they wrote that wrong. They wrote that wrong.
I'll mark that out.
Okay.
Um, Again, Steve, any questions, comments?
No, none really.
Susan?
No comments.
Okay, I guess Heather, how's this going to be attached would be the only other. It's going to, because they're going to add it too, right? They're not removing the panel.
Right. So I think on that second page where you were reading the white,
Yep.
there's
It's
some type of head drilling screw,
the
number
mechanic-
10 rounded drilling screw.
Oh, I see some little screw head marks on
Yeah.
them.
So it looks like 6, 3 on each side.
Oh. I'd like to know that those aren't just going to be rusty little drywall screws, but
No, they won't.
this is a pretty quality panel, so I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt on. Well, here it is, Phillips rounded head drilling screw. Okay, 12 pieces. All right, no, they had it there. I'm sorry, I just didn't see it. Okay. So I would take a motion to approve the sign for 100 Second Ave as submitted.
I'll move the motion.
I'll second the motion.
And then vote, Steve,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
and I am yes. So thanks, Heather.
Thank you so much. Nice to see you again. Thanks, Elisa, always for your help. Thank you.
Next item is Bullfinch. Yeah, 117 Kendrick Street. Tim, you want to take us through what they're trying to do?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Tim Sullivan, Goulston and Stores, here on behalf of the applicant. I'm here with Brian and Mark from Bullfinch and Jeremy from Vivo Architecture. It might be helpful if it's okay with the board to share my screen. I can share the application materials if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Great. Can everyone see this now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we're here for 117 Kendrick Street, which is highlighted in the green here. Just orienting people, Kendrick Street is on the left and 3rd Avenue runs from Kendrick down here by the Coke plant. The application is for a minor modification to the building to add a loading bay for special deliveries. We met informally with the planning board a couple weeks ago, talked this through with them. This is an office lab building that's existed here for a number of years, subject to a special permit. There's no change to the footprint or the gross floor area or anything like that. So all we're talking about is a modification to the exterior for a loading bay, and they look at that as a minor amendment. But before we formally made that application, we wanted to come here and talk to you folks to get input and answer questions. So that's the context of the application. I'll talk a little bit about where this is located and why we're doing it, and then I'll pass it to Jeremy to talk to some of the specifics on the design front. So this is the first site plan that you have in your application materials. The orientation of this plan is a little different than the prior, so just note that Kendrick Street is here on the right, 3rd Avenue is here on the bottom of the building, or the bottom of the plan rather, and then you have the parking field and then the building here in the line work. So the red box is where we're proposing to add a loading bay. The main loading area for this building is located in this area here on the top of the plan, if you can see my cursor. And this is really the addition of this loading bay. We anticipate that it would be used on a limited basis for special deliveries, 1 to 2 times per week. It's really to attract a laboratory tenant down in this side of the building who would have the need to have a special delivery that they wouldn't want to run through from the loading bay on this side of the building, through other office space, through general lobby and reception area to their tenant space. So really limited purpose, and that's why it's needed. All the deliveries will still go to this loading bay here. So the second site plan you have is this one, and it's a little bit more zoomed in, so you can see what's being proposed. It's a curb cut along 3rd Avenue. You have an area for a van. These are vans, standard size vans or slightly larger vans that we're talking about for deliveries. They would back into this loading bay and then exit. So it's a curb cut, a bit of pavement here, leaving the landscaping in place, adding an overhead door to this location here, which we'll see in a minute. That's really what we're talking about as far as the modification goes. And this is, I'll pass it off to Jeremy, but this is a photo of the existing 3rd Avenue facade. Jeremy, if you want to, I will this is the first elevation in your packet of the existing conditions, and I'll let you pick it up from there.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. So as that previous photo showed, there's the existing brick, there's the storefront with the tinted glass and the split face concrete block. So what we're proposing to do is remove one section of the window. So if we're looking at where the 2 bushes are, exactly, thank you, Tim. We're removing one of that section of storefront and adding in a door similar to what's already along the rest of the facade at various points, as well as adding in that overhead door. So that would enable the deliveries that Tim was describing. The materials that we're using are the storefront, which will be similar. It'll be the same mullion color and finish, the same glazing specification and tint as the previous, as is used elsewhere on the building. The door itself, the mullions will match the existing mullions, as will the glazing, and we'll have aluminum banding for the bottom panels, just to give it a little bit more of a clean look on that those bottom 2 feet. We'll also be adding a light fixture above the door and a dock seal around the overhead door.
So that's an overview of what we've submitted. We're happy to answer any questions.
Can I ask, is that space empty right now, or there's no signage of where, what's there or whatever?
That's correct. The suite that's currently there is empty. That's what we call Suite 350.
Okay.
So could you tell me if you're taking the entire existing masonry opening sort of between the split face block and the brick, and that's all going to be the garage door, is that correct?
Yes, it's a 12-foot wide door.
Okay.
I'm sorry, a 10-foot wide door, 12 feet high.
Okay.
So actually the head curtain does us a favor in that regard, and it sort of blocks that top foot of the door, that's so that it appears to be collinear with the other storefronts.
Well, you're not changing that masonry opening, correct, on the top?
The masonry opening will be on the for the door itself will need to be adjusted.
Taller, so you're gonna, it's
Taller.
not gonna align, it's not gonna be the top of the adjacent panel, the adjacent storefront.
Correct.
And the black hood, what is that for?
That's a yeah, it's called a head curtain and a dock seal. So the top is called a head curtain, the sides are a dock seal, and that's so as a truck backs up to it, or a van backs up to it, it can press up against that seal and create like a weather barrier between the vehicle and the building itself. And the head curtain does a similar thing. So depending on the exact height of that vehicle, as it's backing up, it can meet the top of the vehicle.
Okay, I guess my impression was that this was smaller vans and not sort of I've seen those on loading docks for semi trucks or very larger delivery vans. Are you expecting? It sounded like in Tim's comments that it was really more sort of local delivery sized vans. So I'm just trying to get the need because it's a little bit awkward to put that on kind of halfway over the existing split face block designed piece and the other piece that really, I mean, it may not be a simple way to do this, but did you look at changing the split face block into all brick or a different sort of pattern so you weren't just kind of attaching this over the top of everything?
Yeah, so what we ended up doing was we tried to stay within the constraints or the perimeter of the existing storefront wherever we could. And so that would be what we ended up doing was aligning the left-hand side of the door as we're looking at it to the existing storefront. And then the dimensions were sort of dictated by the market and by what we needed to fit for deliveries and expected deliveries.
Okay, so I'm looking back at the existing condition. You're actually at the second panel is adding the door in that section of storefront too. I missed that.
Yeah, yes, right.
Right. Well, I'll let my colleagues weigh in for a minute. Susan?
I think it looks nice. I don't have any real objection. I guess I'm sort of wondering how drivers will know where to go if the address is on the other side of the building. Because as Steve said, there's no signage or anything. I don't know if you're gonna ask for that later, but I don't know how anybody would know where this was.
Well, I think that whole area is, it's a fairly open space. These buildings have typically been identified along Kendrick. And, how they find this door. Yeah, that is. Luckily for us, all these individual companies have not come to us and wanted to add a sign over their little section of the building. So I think that I appreciate that Bulfinch has managed that sort of issue well here, and there aren't 11 different small signs all over the building for every little tenant, which is, I assume, their preference, and that's why it's not happened. But so yeah, I guess.
But they already have a loading dock, so unless the other loading dock sends them to this loading dock, I'm not sure how anyone would know where to go.
Right, Tim, or
Yeah, Brian, are you able to talk to that operationally as far as how this works at the property for coordinating deliveries?
So typically these deliveries are on some sort of recurring basis. So whether it be a weekly or a monthly or quarterly or annually, there will be drivers that will be coming back to the site on a periodic basis. not frequently, but on a recurring basis. And within the delivery instructions, there's typically areas that provide directions around how to deliver the materials in addition to where. So I would expect that it would be something that a recipient of deliveries would be able to navigate pretty quickly. It's a common course of business.
Right, so this isn't a random FedEx truck trying to find your loading dock. These are deliveries that you've arranged with a specific supplier.
Specifically for the lab use. And with regards to the location of this, because someone had commented on the loading dock on the other side of the building, that will still be the primary loading used for typical office type and business type purposes. The reason for this is so that we're not delivering through the common corridor for lab specialties.
Okay.
And if I might add, Mark Diorio from Bullfinch, this is solely for the Suite 350. This is only for Suite 350 and not for any of the other tenants in the building. So it's the immediate suite that will be served by this loading bay. And Mr. Chair, you mentioned about the type of delivery vehicle. We've done some studies on this, and we expect at least 70% or so of the deliveries will be smaller vans, but there are on occasion, on the 1 to 2 deliveries a week, a larger, 30-foot type of truck vehicle, if you will, that having the enclosure and the surround would be useful, as Jeremy mentioned earlier, for weather protection.
Okay. So you do get a bigger box truck, probably.
Every once in a while, yes.
Steve?
My questions have sort of just been answered, responded. As long as there's no safety dangers, like there's enough road there that would have to back in and everything. It's hard for me to get perspective of how close the driveway is to the road, but they'll be able to like back in and there won't be any real issues, just functioning, the actual function of it. But no, my concerns have just been addressed, so I'm okay.
And just on that point, VHB, our traffic consultants, have studied this, and that was something we reviewed with the planning board and expect to, they'll get information on that and get comfortable with that particular operation. But VHB's conclusion is yes, that it will work very well here.
Okay, then I'm good.
And the asymmetric entrance curves, that's just because that's how you expect them to arrive, and they need the bigger arc on the one side, but not on the other.
That's right. So that's what helps it. This is from VHB's perspective, but this helps the trucks back in without getting into the without too many point turns and staying in the roadway or on the sidewalk.
Yeah, that's a big street, so I'm not that concerned about that. Susan, are you comfortable with their answers regarding why they want to use this specific door?
Yeah, I think it looks nice. I do have one other question. I don't know if this is in our purview, but is it a roll-up garage door? How does it open?
It's a sectional.
I'm sorry, it's what?
A sectional. So each band of windows, or in the case of the bottom row, aluminum panel, just like many home garage doors. So it doesn't roll up the way that some like parking garage doors do.
Doesn't roll into a coil, but it does. I know what Susan's saying. I would call it rolls up on casters, but there are arms inside and it stays level.
Yeah.
Up high.
That's correct.
Okay. Anything else from the board?
Well, my purpose in asking was, I don't know how many of those windows or suites belong to other people. I'm just wondering, is this going to create a lot of noise or rumbling every time this door opens for the other tenants?
Well, you can see on the second site plan, there's the tenant lines are drawn. So it's pretty much in the center of that particular tenancy, which has, and it owns the door to the left of the garage door, and then it looks like the two bays to the right.
Well, I'm just bringing that up.
Well, we can note that in an email to the planning board that that was a question we had, but that's really for them to deal with.
Okay.
Okay, it doesn't appear to me that Susan was probably much of a problem. They're talking about a couple times a week that they open this.
And just, I would just add, you know, obviously we don't want other tenants to be disturbed either. So that would be just as much our problem as anybody else's, more so, candidly.
Okay. And anything else?
Not from me.
Okay. All right, so I would take a motion to approve the facade changes to 117 Kendrick Street as submitted.
I'll move the motion.
I'll second the motion.
The vote is Steve.
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
And I approve also. Okay, so we will, sometimes on these minor revisions, we just send a DRB approval, but I will also email the planning board just with a couple other comments, you know, the question about the disturbance, the noise level likely to deal with it. And that's a question for them to deal with, but we'll mention that we talked about it. And I think there was, yeah, sort of a review, the size of the truck versus the street, which I think you've taken care of. All right.
Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I see Heather is still here. Is there something you need? Or are you just enjoying the show?
I'm just enjoying.
Okay, great.
I like to listen to the other cases for my own education.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right, and the next item is AJ Rose, 120 Holland Ave. Are they here?
Yeah. Brian Brinkers, Acme.
You're back.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Right. So you want to take us through? We saw Brian at our last meeting when they applied for a special permit for larger than allowed signs, and which we did not approve. So he's back today with two signs, front and back again, that meets that are under the 32 square foot limit.
That's correct. We've adjusted the application to meet the requests of the board.
Any questions or comments from the board?
I'll assume the only difference is the size from when we went over it last.
Yeah, Steve, that's it. We just reduced the square footage down to 32.
I do have to say it does look a little more tasteful. It does look better, I think. For what it's worth.
Who you ask, I guess, right?
Right, I'm sure.
The carpets and flooring are the most important part. Those letters are 3 3/4 inches, and essentially you can't see them. So it's not good, but that's.
Well, you could easily have made the AJ Rose part smaller and increased the size of that.
Very true. It's all about branding. It's true.
Well, do you want to do that?
No. These people are opening. They need a sign up.
All right. Well, the other part of the bylaw, which we did, I believe we did discuss about, and when we talked about your first application, is that having a second sign facing a parking lot is an allowed item in our, but it's supposed to be smaller than the main sign.
Okay.
And I had mentioned also that in this particular building, we've allowed that to be reversed, that the one on Highland Ave could be a little smaller, but
I see.
we do need to adjust just the square footage of one of them. I looked at other applications of your neighbors, and they all had a secondary sign that was just a little bit smaller. One was 32, the other one would be 28 or 26. So I think to be consistent and fair, we're going to ask you to reduce the Highland Avenue sign to say, 30 square feet. The board agrees that we want to be consistent about that requirement.
Totally understand why, but in the manufacturing of that, instead of making two, think about it as a baker, making 2 loaves of bread, super easy to make 2. Now we would have to make 1 twice, and it's a lot of extra work to do a different size that's that much smaller. So I suppose I'm going to ask the board right now to consider or allowing the 32 square feet on both the front and the rear. It's really going to help us out a ton.
Well, I would defer to the other members at this.
I'm not sure I understand.
Okay, in the bylaw, because of their address, they're allowed 1 sign at that location. You can have a second sign to an entrance that faces a parking lot. I mean, I can get the bylaw and read it, but that's the sort of summary.
Right.
The requirement is that sign is not as large as the main sign.
So which is the main sign? The one where?
Well, we're going to they can choose, but in this location, every tenant has chosen to put the main sign actually facing the parking lot and a smaller sign on Highland, just because that's really where the entrance is. It's a big parking lot, and it's always made sense to us. So we've sort of accepted that approach, which is what I mentioned to Brian last time. But
Brian, you're saying
they're trying to just make 2 signs one time, and if the other members are comfortable with that, that's fine. It's a minor consideration that everyone else is typically compliant with.
I'm looking at the picture right now of the rear entrance, which is the one that we're thinking should be a little bit smaller, but I can only see the O in Geico. It looks like it would be proportionate in size to that size.
Oh, it's actually smaller, Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah, quite a bit smaller, actually. What hogs all of our square footage is the rows with the pedals and the higher and lower. It's the actual logo image of the rose itself.
Yeah, we understand. I think that may be why your neighbor eliminated the puppy from their splash and
right
sign, and so that they got a slightly larger lettering.
Yeah, so I mean, we're all good with, and I've discussed it with the owners, of course. We're all good with the 32 square feet, but I think I'm asking for the board to allow these 2 signs to be at the same size, because it's a lot more work to do it, even a different size. Doesn't matter how different.
Yep, I understand. But
yeah.
My only concern is all the other tenants.
Yeah.
It only takes 1 for everyone else to say, why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Well, we might want to take a look at the bylaw and see if we want to do that. But at this point, Brian, we're really our hands are a little tied. We have enforced this on all the other tenants. And someone was going to be coming in after all of you and trying to do something. And I don't want to eliminate that rule from the bylaw at this point.
What is exactly the rule and what's the reduction in size? I guess I'm going to need to have an answer from my customer. And quite honestly, I think they're going to want the largest sign on.
You know what? I understand that they want as big a sign as they could have because they applied for a 60 square foot sign, and so I understand what they want, but that's not going to happen.
Totally get it. We're all aware of that.
So we can move on from that issue.
So I guess my question is it had nothing to do with the larger 60 square foot sign. It was what the city or the town will allow.
Right. It needs to, the bylaw just says it needs to be smaller. So I think when I had the Splash and Dash, I think they were at 28 square feet. Landry's Bicycle had 24 square feet on this side. So I think we're going to ask for something in that range. If the board agrees.
I agree.
I concur.
So why don't we just say, we've got to, again, there is an impact to the visual strength of this because of the graphic, which is actually something I think I'm going to have the board talk about at a future meeting. But so Brian, I'm going to say that the Highland Avenue sign will be 28 square feet.
So the Highland Avenue sign, it's my guess that the AJ Rose people would want to be the larger sign.
Okay, great. So we'll do the parking lot side.
This is like unbelievable, but that's probably what they're going to want. And I think what I'm going to ask the board is if they're going to move forward with reducing the size of one of the signs down, is to not at this time require it to be on either of the two, but just one of the two be smaller.
I'm comfortable with that, yeah, because ideally doing it the way more strict adherence to the way the rule is written. So
can we just make it smaller? Does it have to be a particular square footage?
Well, I'm not going to just give you carte blanche to go to 31.5 square feet. You could move the rows over an inch, you would be a different size. So
it says it has to be smaller.
We're going to set a size.
It's smaller. But if it says it has to be, say, 20% smaller, then so be it. But they're going to ask me these questions, and you're going
to tell them to call me, or you can tell them that this is what the board told you to do.
Okay, even though
our understanding of the bylaw, and if they want to appeal that, you can appeal to the building commissioner first, and then it comes back to us. The building commissioner is the enforcement agent. So they want to try and talk, or you want to try and talk to him and tell him why you want to do this. But I want to set a size so that we have a record of what it is.
Are we setting the size now, or do you need to review something? Oh, okay.
I want to set the size. I mean, it doesn't have to be 20. I mean, the other people at 28 and 24.
So 28, I guess, is the bigger of the two.
AJ Rose size is smaller than Geico on both front and rear.
The lettering is, but the sign is measured in an overall box. You're free to redesign it. You can do what the Splash and Dash people did and take the rows off. You can make the lettering for AJ Rose smaller and increase the carpets and flooring size if you want. But this is what you chose to submit to us. That's all we can do is work with it.
Mm-hmm.
Given that it's got a graphic element to it that impacts the size, I'm willing to say 30 square feet if the board is comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm.
Fine with me.
Yeah. Okay with me.
Right. So Brian, that's where we're going to have to go here. I'm going to note it on the parking lot side, but in my notes, I will say that it can be on either side. So the approval will be that the sign that's 31.75 can be on either side of the building, and the sign that's 30 can be on either side. So we'll approve it with those conditions.
So is one of them restricted to 31.75 or 32?
I'm just reading the number that you printed on the sheet. It's 31.75. You want to find another quarter inch somewhere, you're welcome to it. But
I thought that the drawing shows 32 square feet, which is what we designed. I don't know where is 31.7.
Okay, I'm reading the inches. I'm sorry. Yeah, my mistake. Okay. I got confused. I was looking at the dimensions. Apologize. Okay, so this will be 30 square feet. So I would take a motion to approve
which we reduced down to meet the requests of the board.
It's not a request of the board, it's a requirement of the bylaw.
So we reduced it to meet the requirement of the bylaw.
And we appreciate that. And to have a second sign, it needs to be smaller than the main sign.
Correct.
So that's what we're going to do here.
Yeah, cool. I just wanted it to be recorded properly.
Okay. So I take a motion to approve the Highland Avenue sign as submitted with the condition that it could be installed on the parking lot side if they choose.
I'll move the motion.
I second the motion.
And we vote. Steve?
So if I understood it, it is with adjusting.
No, this sign is as submitted. Other than they may be allowed to put it on the parking lot side of the building if they choose.
So it's okay. So then, yes.
Susan?
Yes.
And I approve. I just want to get the notes in. If you give me a second, sorry. And I would take a motion to approve the second sign that faces the parking lot with the condition that it be limited to 30 square feet.
Okay.
And that it has the option of being placed on Highland Ave side of the building if they choose.
Move the motion.
Second the motion.
Okay, and we come to the vote. Steve?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Okay, and I approve. Okay.
Great, thank you, folks.
Right. Thanks, Brian. Thanks for working with us. And the next item is Congregational Church, 1154 Great Plain Avenue.
Yes, hi. My name is Andrew Clark, and I'm from Expose Signs. I'm representing the Congregational Church. Thank you very much for having me this evening.
Right, can you take us through?
So the sign, the church is replacing their sign. It's aged and it needs to be replaced. It's the same size, very, very similar design. Mounting on this existing posts in the exact same location.
Okay.
So it's a pretty minimal change. I think one of the reasons they brought here is it had a rounded top versus a pointed top, but it's just a slight design change in what they're doing. But the rest of the copy, the rest of the emblems and all the, is pretty much nearly identical. So
Could you tell us the sign construction? I'm looking
Sign, they requested that it be made of a fabricated aluminum cabinet. One of the members of the congregation, they own another company, and so they knew a lot about what they wanted. So they specified a SignComp 3 series series 3 cabinet with aluminum faces. So it's pretty much all aluminum with raised dimensional elements on it, painted with a Matthews. It's a very durable sign. And I think they were looking for the durability of it.
Okay.
So mounts with a set of angle clips into the masonry, into the granite pillars. There's some existing mounting already in place, so we're just going to remove that and use a very similar clip even to what's existing.
Okay, then they are all metal letters applied. I sort of there's some vinyl also.
I think the only elements that are vinyl are going to be the flag, the all-inclusive, welcoming.
The rainbow.
Yeah. Elements are that. I think that's the only component, and it's all 3/8-inch aluminum letter stud mounted. Vinyl flag and border. I apologize. The border will also be an applied vinyl graphic.
Okay.
Or painted, probably be painted to match the same paint color as the letters.
Okay. Questions, Susan?
I don't have any questions. I think it's a lovely sign.
Steve?
Thank you.
Just drove by there the other day and saw the old one. It looks good. My only comment is they should make sure they keep those shrubs pruned so it doesn't obstruct the sign.
I will let them know because they've got to prune them before we get there, so we could access it. So yes, I will. You're speaking. You're doing the Lord's work, please. In terms of getting that message out. So I'll let them know for sure.
Okay, and there are no sort of visibility issues. It's not near driveway, so that's one of the things we typically look at with ground signs. And so I think it looks very nice, and it was an interesting change from the gable to the arch, but so I think it fits nicely. Any other questions? All right, so I would take a motion to approve the sign.
I'm sorry. I move the motion.
I second the motion.
Well, let me to approve it as submitted. That was the motion. All right, fine. Steve?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
And I approve.
Thank you very much for your time and for your input.
I appreciate the information in the packet. That was very good, very thorough.
I'll let my office manager know. Lisa, thank you very much for helping out Kevin. I know he was super appreciative of your assistance. So thank you very much. Have a good evening, Gil.
Good night.
Right.
All right. I hadn't had a chance to talk to Elisa today, but I was going to raise the question. I'm going to do it when schedule permitting, but I think I would like to talk about the specific bylaw that defines how we measure the sign. Right now it's a box around everything. And I do think that some of these signs that have a graphic element are punished a little bit on their lettering size to where, for instance, the rose is the perfect example. If we excluded that from the lettering measurement, I think they could have had a little bit bigger lettering. Not that it's too small. I think it's a nice sign. I think I agree with Steve. It looks like it fits in there a lot better now than it did. But we still have the ability to control that letter size. But I'm going to talk with Elisa about, finding 5 or 6 examples of when we've had to do this and see if it's something we want to consider. And that would be I don't know how we do it, but whether we want to consider, or if everybody's like, you know, it's so rare. And the fact is they're still getting a big amount of area and we're fine with the way it is. So, but I want to just bring up because I think Felix was kind of questioning that at the last meeting about what's the letter size alone if we exclude the rows. You know, the Splash Pup one is another good example, but there have been others where it's impacted it. And it does, you know, I'm hoping for a little more consistency because when the neighbor is Geico and they have nothing but letters, then the lettering difference can be significant. So I just want to sort of bring up that I think I'd like to look at that with the board, and we'll have a little study on that and get some feedback. So I guess the thing to do now is just kind of pay attention to that as you go around and see if you've noticed. And really, it's also about what's next door. What happens to the neighbor who doesn't do that? And would we be able to get a little more consistency in our look if we did something like that? So that's all I have today. And again, I'm not sure of the timing. I want to make sure Lisa has time to do this. I don't want to overload her. So it may be something we wait till the beginning of the year to do. But it was on my mind after Felix's comments last time. So I wanted to bring it up with whoever was here today. So I would take a motion to adjourn.
What about minutes?
Oh, the minutes of October 23rd. Thank you. And we were all there. So any questions or comments on the minutes of October 23rd?
No.
You know, we're probably the only board that posts them this quickly. You can go to some of the other boards and you look for, a friend of mine was looking for notes from another board in town. The last ones they had were from November of last year.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
The one that were posted online, they may have reviewed more, but they're not getting them up on the website.
Wow.
So I take a motion to approve the minutes of October 23rd.
I'll move the motion.
I'll second the motion.
We come to the vote. Steve?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
I approve. And we were all there. So that's perfect. And now I would take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move the motion.
I second the motion.
And we come to the vote. Steve?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Chair is yes. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you all.